I remember as a teenager thinking, like, no other teenager in the world can relate to this. And I knew it was irrational, but I was feeling it. I was like, I'm the last person that this is going to happen to. The Lord's going to come back soon. Nobody else is going to understand my pain. And 2 months to the day, September 11th occurred. And all I could think as that broken, grieving teenage girl was, wow, how many other teenagers lost their parent today?
Hey, housewives, come on in. You know the dirty dishes are still in the sink from yesterday and the laundry is still in the basket. Pop your AirPods in and make yourself at home here.
I'm Tracy.
I'm Tori.
And we are your Unlikely Housewives. Stepping out in faith and believing that God calls the unlikely, we are here to show you the appreciation and validation you deserve, lead you to authentic relationships, and release you of believing the cultural lies to restore your faith and wellness.
Pull up those high-waisted yoga pants, tighten your top knot, and reheat your coffee for the third time. Turn up the volume, and let's go. Hey, housewives.
Hey, we are so excited to introduce you to our guest today.
Yes, and this is still Tori. I know it sounds like I've been smoking. So that is my new hobby, actually. I've taken up a couple of packs a day. Don't mind me. Absolutely kidding. Just have a fun case of bronchitis, laryngitis stuff, and it sounds a lot worse than it actually is. And I promise that it's not bad. So, but we wanted to introduce you to this episode with Dr. Amanda McNeil.
Yeah, Amanda is a counselor and a therapist for those specifically dealing with grief in many areas. Obviously, we can't classify, what people are struggling from a grief standpoint. However, one of the greatest things that she talks about in this episode is just how there's layers and there's different ways of processing and different ways of handling grief.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because Tracy and I are a dynamic duo, as you guys would know. And we both handle grief differently. And so getting to talk to her about how is my way okay? Because I like to just avoid and make jokes. And in this episode, I talk about my funeral a lot. So that's fun there at the end. And then, but Tracy talks about she's like how are you feeling? And
that's the process. It's the process in it.
Yeah.
The healing for me.
Right. And so I hope that between the three of us in this conversation, that you find some peace to cling on to and still see God in whatever it is that you're going through. But this episode is for the one who is grieving.
Enjoy.
Hey, housewives.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back. We are excited with another guest for this series for you. But I am going to give you a little disclaimer. It's going to sound like somebody is knocking on the door and that we refuse to listen or answer it. Don't worry. It's not the big bad wolf. It's actually roofers. So a lot of times we just have to roll with what we got. So if you hear it, I apologize. Craig is amazing and y'all know that. So just know that we're trying to make this audio as best possible. You just got to work with what you got. So anyways, That being said, our gift today is Dr. Amanda McNeil, and I'm going to let Tracy introduce her.
Yes. All right. So Dr. Amanda helps people find hope in the darkness of seasons. She is an author and licensed pastoral counselor from Orlando, Florida. Her specialties include leadership coaching, premarital counseling, and grief counseling. Her latest book, Overcoming the Overcast, became the #1 new release on Amazon for those looking to navigate their grief journey honestly and with hope. She's married for 15 years with one miracle baby who is now 9. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you both for having me. I'm honored to be here. And honestly, all I can think is, the Lord's gifting us with the idea of knock and the door will be open to you, So that's what we're diving into today.
Circumstances.
Wow, there you go. That's the Bible verse for ask, knock, and doors will open, and ask, and you shall receive.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good. starter.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Amanda, start for our listeners. Tell us, obviously, we gave a little brief bio, just kind of how you got to being a counselor and just a little bit about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a native Floridian, which is really pretty rare. Most people move here to escape some kind of weather, but proud native Floridian holding it down. And I am a church kid through and through. I grew up with missionary parents in church ministry, and I've loved the Lord ever since I was so young. And like most counselors, got into this field because I experienced my own life trauma and difficulty and wanted to figure myself out in college. So I dove into that route. But for me, the Lord has absolutely used this as such a beautiful part of my redemption story and trading the ashes of my life for beauty. Every time I get to share my story or sit with someone in their pain, it is redemption that my pain wasn't for nothing.
Yeah.
And so my father passed away unexpectedly in an accident when I was 14 years old. And that just made our family real. And I had to go through a long healing journey. But even at that young age, I knew that counseling was going to be part of my story. Certainly embarking on my own counseling journey to wrestle with brokenness and pursue wholeness, but also that it would be used to impact others. Even the timeline, my father passed away. And I remember as a teenager thinking, like, no other teenager in the world can relate to this. And I knew it was irrational, but I was feeling it. I was like, I'm the last person that this is going to happen to. The Lord's going to come back soon. Nobody else is going to understand my pain. And 2 months to the day, September 11th occurred. And all I could think as that broken, grieving teenage girl was, wow, how many other teenagers lost their parent today? And so I knew that I had to share my story and use my voice, and didn't know exactly what that journey would look like, but it's beautiful how God has woven so many different things together in my life.
Wow. That's, I mean, again, one as a 14-year-old having such a revelation, I guess, of like, hey, wow, I'm not alone. I mean, our whole podcast is about you are not alone, and we're doing this as 45 and or almost 45-year-old women and almost 40-year-old women, like, and to be so young and to see it from such a, like, just, I don't know, that's such a soft heart. And at 14, I think it's beautiful that you were able to see that and really, it sounds like you used it as a catalyst to pull yourself out of grief and into I'm not alone and someone else is walking through, I'm walking through.
Absolutely. Grief is so isolating. So I completely felt so lonely. And there's a lot of additional factors as to what that looked like in my particular household. My mother went through an extreme depression that even as a teenager, I wasn't aware of until she started to come out of it a decade later. And so that's very isolating as well. And I certainly did not navigate my grief journey perfectly or neatly. It was not easy. I'm speaking with decades of hindsight here and lots of training and healing. But I will say I am naturally a little stubborn. And so I think I had to lean into that even as a young person going, okay, this sucks. This is not great. There's nothing good about this. But for me personally, I had to cling to Romans 8:28. It was a verse I actually heard my dad quote a lot, that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called to his purposes. And I remember as a teenager, almost like spitfire in God's face, like, hey, this is not good, but I don't believe you're a liar. So you need to prove how you can bring good out of this. And again, over and over again, even this podcast, it for me is a part of him bringing good and beauty into my life.
That's my favorite verse and life verses, because it's acknowledging that we live in a broken world. But at the same time, God loves us so much and he sees a bigger picture, and there is a bigger picture that we don't have access to. And so, yeah, that verse always has meant something special to me. So I have a question. As this one, Tracy and I joke that we have guests on for our own selfish purposes, and I'm calling in my chip right now for that. I have one of my daughters is she feels things so deeply for others, like she gets anxious, and I know what this is like as a child because I did it, but like in TV shows, she gets so anxious, like in the tense part or the climax, like is he going to make it? Is he going to live? Kind of thing. Like she has to walk away, and because she feels it, she feels that. Well, and her teacher this year is about to lose her husband to a brain tumor, and like so it's a couple weeks, and like it's imminent. They know, but everybody knows it. We know where he's going, but how do you come alongside a child in that and just go, okay, he's going to leave this earth, but we know where he's going. And like, I mean, again, you have to feel that the grief we're not without grief. You can't prevent the grief. It's going to happen, but trying to encourage or just, make sure that a child understands like, yeah, this is what death looks like. And this is, but as believers, we have hope. We know that there is eternal life. What would you suggest for parents that have children that are those deep feelers for others and they just see people hurting?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. What a beautiful heart that she has. And first of all, I should have complimented her later because I'm about to say, am I your daughter? There have been times where I've been in the movie theater and I start praying for the character. And I'm like, whoa, Amanda, you are way too into this right now. Like,
I've had to stop TV shows. Like I would find myself gripping the edges of and I'm like, this is not enjoyable. Why am I doing this? So I've literally movies, the tearful no, I do not support myself.
I can just add one tidbit. We're watching The House of David, or we just finished The House of David last night. I think it's called The House of David.
It's
so good. And it's the last one. And David is fighting Goliath. And I'm like, my daughter is freaking out, my young one. And I was like, baby, you know how the story ends. It's okay.
Right.
Like, he's going to get up. He's going to win the battle. Like,
yeah.
But she was freaking out. So it's kind of funny that like we talk about this.
But even, I mean, again, we watch a show, we a detective show, and it's called Hudson and Rex. Like the show is literally named after the detective and his partner, the dog. And so like anytime something happens that, oh my gosh, Hudson's gonna die. Hudson, I'm like, the show is named after him. He's not going anywhere. Like but it's trying to convince ourselves. But I mean, like you said, the Bible. I mean, we know how the story goes. We read the end.
Yeah.
But yes. So
I love this question. And like many things about the brain and the mind and the spirit, there's a lot of study and there's a lot of mystery here. So I don't specialize in child psychology, although as a mom, I'm constantly engaging in it. I'm like, oh, what's going on? But, until we are in our mid-20s, our prefrontal cortex is still developing, and that's where logic and reasoning is found. So especially for our younger kiddos, elementary age and younger, even middle school and younger, they really struggle with gray area thinking. They need things to be concrete and black and white. And so even the logic of nothing's going to happen to Rex. Rex is the name of the show. Like Rex is going to be okay. That's not part of their brain that's engaged. They're engaged in there's adventure, there's danger, there's mystery. What is going to happen? And so even with navigating grief, especially in a case like this, where this is what's called anticipatory grief, there's a measure of anticipating loss or even processing loss, but it is still nothing compared to when the loss actually occurs and we can actually process the loss that has happened. Because before loss, when we're anticipating it, it's very abstract and we can't successfully process abstract things. We need to process concrete things as human beings, but especially as young children, where that concrete thinking has to be engaged in. And this idea of, especially as believers, yes, we grieve, but we are not without hope because we know where he's going. That is a gray concept for a childhood thinker. And I actually write a little bit about this in my book because even adults struggle with this. As a believer, how can I feel so deeply angry and sad and disappointed and yet grateful and hopeful for reunion? That is complicated. And walking our kids through it, as parents, we actually have to let our children borrow our prefrontal cortex, this front part of our brain. So when they're dysregulated, when they're emotional, we have to remain calm and soothe them and meet them where they're at with empathy so that they actually can calm down because they don't have full access to that part of their brain as it's developing. I think similarly with helping our children navigate grief, we have to meet them where they are at. And on days where they're feeling sad, we acknowledge that. It's an extremely sad situation. I am so sorry that your teacher's going through this. I am so sorry that you're going through this. And then on days where maybe they have questions about heaven, we can meet them with that hope of heaven is such a gift. And I'm so excited to see so many people there. And we don't have to necessarily cross them together at the same time, because sometimes in our attempt to cheer someone up or offer them hope, we minimize the pain that they're feeling in that moment. So it's so complicated to meet people.
That's actually really good. Can we sit on that for a second? Because I'm a feeler. I am the feeler. I am like a crier, laugher, like all of it. But if I don't feel seen when I'm hurting, it is like I'm completely dismissed as a human. And we talk about this a lot because she does, I think her daughter's a lot like me. I'm like, you're welcome. Everything I'm going through and processing with you, I'm helping.
Give me a preview.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. So, but it is the, like, we do want to just quick offer hope and quick offer that, like, it's going to be okay. Or just think what this is like for, this person walking through this, or, like, and I'm not just talking grief from death, but just like painful situations, hard, being out of a sport for 12 weeks from being injured, to then coming back, like you're like, it's going to be okay. Like blah, blah, blah. No, those 12 weeks are going to be hard. Mm-hmm. Like, and I know some people don't like to feel uncomfortable and feel, yeah, right.
And for our listeners, I am raising my hand.
Yeah. And so I get that. However, it does what you just said. You feel so dismissed when you're like, I'm still struggling. And I'm learning this with my kids. We recently lost our dog who was with us for almost 10 years. And it was within 12 hours. Like we didn't even know. I mean, it was one night was fine. And the next morning he was gone. And I mean, we have sat down and had like these full circle of life conversations as a family because they're like, I would have cuddled with him one more night. I would have taken him to the walk one more time. I would have like given him a steak, like his best meal ever, like all the things, and then you have the other side of it where, grief was so heavy on one of my kids. They were like, I don't even want to have fun. I don't even want to smile. I don't even want to go play a sport. I don't want to be with my friends because I feel bad because he's gone. How do I go on? Mm-hmm. And I was like, you don't have to. Like, you can just be at home and feel it if you want. Like, there's no timeline. There's no pressure. But in that, like, I mean, clearly I'm hearing and feeling that that's good advice, but and maybe that's just because that's how I feel too. But I would love for you to talk a little bit about that and like encourage obviously our listeners, that like, hey, when you're walking through something hard, how do you not just stay there? Because you're right. Like the flip side is the like deep depression, not handling it, not facing it. but also the hope of moving to the next stage, I guess.
Yeah. I love how you handled that as a mom, because you're so right. Like, our kids are all different from one another, and it is okay that one's ready to move on and play and another one isn't.
Yeah.
I find, especially in grief work, people tend to gravitate naturally toward one extreme or another. Isn't that human nature,
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to engaging our feelings or not engaging our feelings, that's often what I see is some people will deep dive. And of course, depending on the type of loss, it can be deeply devastating. Grieving a move across the country is not the same as grieving the death of a spouse. Those are two griefs, but they are to different degrees of how they impact us. But for some people, they will fixate on their loss and on their grief, and everything becomes about that. And there is no room for joy or for presence or for relief or rest, because depression is taking over everything. And then there are other people I see completely attempt to avoid it. And I'm going to pack my schedule and I'm going to play and I'm going to go out with friends so that I don't have to think about it. And like most things in life, going to either extreme for long enough usually isn't healthy. And so I encourage clients to schedule and find something in the balance. And it might sound like funny language, but I encourage people, we have to schedule time to grieve and actually engage our grief, especially if we tend to avoid feelings, whether that is going to a grief support group or grief journaling or counseling or purposefully sharing a memory with a loved one, actually purposefully engaging our grief, because what we don't face, we cannot heal. We cannot move through it. And then for those who maybe make grief their everything, we actually also have to schedule time to quote unquote vacation from grief. Not that the love goes away, not that the pain goes away, not that the feelings go away, but actually purposefully engage. I'm going to play a board game, or I'm going to let myself go on a walk and choose to think about what is good in my life right now. And it is making space for both, because being present is actually naming the reality that there is pain and there is beauty happening in my life at the same time.
Mm.
And oftentimes that can feel like a betrayal of our love or our grief to laugh or to play. But that doesn't mean you're okay just because you have a moment of pleasure and beauty in your grief healing process.
That's really good. Have you ever seen Shrinking on Apple TV?
Yeah, yes.
It's funny. You reminded me of the time in which they told her, like, go have your 20 minutes. Like, she goes in her room and gets out her pictures of her mom and the dresses and whatever. And she just cries for 20 minutes. Then she packs her box up and she puts it away. And then she goes on about her life, because she was feeling that, like, just the avoidance of it and not the sitting in it. It's one of my favorite shows, by the way.
She keeps telling me to watch it. Eventually I'll get there.
Yes, you can do it this summer.
That's fine. But I don't know. It doesn't sound good now that she's crying about losing her mother. So, man, feelings.
It does have strong grief themes for sure.
It does.
Then I won't be. She'll give me the recap. That's fine.
But on the flip side of it, though, while it's heavy grief, the joy of friendship and community and relationship is the other side. Like, it's why you need both. Mm-hmm. It's the and. We talk about the and, girl.
We do talk about the and. But I really like this.
She's the extremist.
Well, and that's the natural human tendency. Let's get back to feeling good. Let's get back to enjoying life. And this is why we look for the checklist to healing and processing. And at times why we look to cheer someone else up, because we don't want to see someone we love suffering.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty sure that was in a text message today to a friend just sharing some news. And I was like, hey, just FYI, I'm here if you need anything. But I was trying to lighten the situation, like, because I'm not good with, like, how are you feeling? I don't know what to do with I'm sad. I don't. And so my personal thing is I just want to, like, hey, let me lighten the mood. Let me make them
But that's needed though. Like that's also like I think about the balance of it though. Like because I do sit there and I can feel and that's
her response was a lot different than mine. Which
I was like, how are you?
Yeah. How are you feeling? It's like
we're good. We're good compliments.
We are
of each other.
on that one.
There you go.
So, but
we need the balance. We need that balance because especially for someone, like we said, if they go too far into everything is awful, well, that's not reality either. Right. And so it is okay to bring laughter and joy with respect to where they are and when they engage it or ask for it. And sometimes that's hard to discern because they won't necessarily ask for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay, as a person who avoids feelings and like, I'm very much that. Like I remember as a kid talking about losing our pets. I remember when I lost my first dog, he passed away again, one of those unexpected things. And I remember it was over the summer and I basically asked my mom if I could stay for an entire week over at my best friend's house because I was avoiding because every time I walked in the house, I was sad. And so very much avoidant and very much like, and that's how I processed it. I made sure from the rest of the summer, I was busy. I was out of the house for 80% of the day. I just slept there and came home and then went out again. What is something that for the friends that we know are totally in avoidance mode, we know that you can't do that forever. Right. You know, whether you're avoiding the loss of obviously, like you said, different degrees, whether you're the grief of moving across the country, losing a pet, losing a spouse, or, you know, or just a major change in your life situations. When you see somebody just continuing to avoid, where you're like, okay, this is at the point where it's unhealthy for you. What do you suggest as a friend to do? Like, how do you support them in that and just say, hey, look, I mean, you gotta handle this.
Yeah. So I love the balance of your two different approaches because I'm hearing Tori's like, let's get down to business. Let's just do it. And again, different people need different things at different points in their journey. So as a counselor, very rarely is someone going to come to me and be completely avoidant, or they'll schedule and not show up. So that's a clue, you know, like, okay,
gotcha.
But as a friend, I think there are a variety of ways we can discern how to approach what loving support looks like. So maybe the feelings route could be a gentle invitation of, hey, I'll let you know I miss them too. Or I was wondering if I could share one of my memories, or if you would share one of your favorite memories, or what have you been thinking about lately? And it gives the person that we're wanting to support something specific and concrete. And of course, they can choose to share or not share. But the specificity of asking about one memory or one thing helps take out some of the overwhelm, because it's like, well, there's a million things I could say. There's a lot of feelings I'm having, but sharing one thing helps. It's almost like baby stepping. Like, I'm going to hold your hand through this one layer. We're not going to get through every layer of grief, but I can walk with you through this one. And even a lot of times I think we can avoid asking for their feelings because as a supporter, we're worried we might say the wrong thing. Or one thing I hear a lot from friends and family members are, well, if they're having a good day, I don't want to remind them, or I don't want to bring them down.
Yeah.
And my cheekiness comes out a little bit. And I'm like, do you think they forgot? Like,
yeah.
So true. So true.
Actually, you acknowledging, I've been thinking about them a lot lately too. Mm-hmm. Or your loved one's birthday's coming up. Do you want to go shop for an outfit, or do you want me to get a cake or something of that nature? And they may be like, what? No way. I don't want to celebrate. But other people might find that of, wow, you're thinking of them. They impacted you just the way they impacted me. And you can find ways to connect with people like that. Maybe for other people, they need the more direct approach of, hey, I love you. I see you spiraling. It's my hope for you that you can reach out for help, that you can talk to me, or that you'll go to a support group or talk to our pastor or talk to a counselor, and being honest about what you see and how you care for them. For some people, that's going to be really connecting as well.
Because I mean, I know people, let's be honest, those that avoid, we're very clearly, we know what we're doing. We're like, I'm not feeling this. I'm not going to tackle this. And there's that awareness of like, yeah, if I just don't talk about it, if I just don't do it, then it'll magically go, eventually over time it'll disappear and we'll move on. But I mean, it's there is that level of self-awareness where we're, we trying to fool ourselves into others that no, I'm fine. I'm just doing this and this and this. But when we get to the point where we're like, no, I'm clearly avoiding this. And I don't like, that's the hard part, when somebody acknowledges that they're avoiding something and you're like, man, I know you're avoiding it. And I would, and you and not being through it either. That is also a hard, right? Like, I can't imagine how you feel. However, I know what you're doing is not beneficial for you. That's, I guess,
here's a question in regards to what Tori just said. If we see someone spiraling or also sitting in their grief, and again, can't use the words too long because everybody's timing is their own timing. So my question is maybe more directed at, how would you advise our listeners, in encouragement of, hey, if you're here, or if this is affecting, maybe it's your daily life or it's your relationships, like how do they know they need help? Like it could be that it was 4 years ago, still too soon. Maybe it's 20 years ago and they're still dealing with the avoidance or the lack of really just ever processing it. How would you give someone advice like, hey, you could probably use some counseling to move beyond this so that you are your best self?
I think, for me, it's almost like missional to help rewrite some stereotypes about mental health, that everyone needs support. Honestly, everyone needs support in every season of our lives.
Yeah.
And now certainly in some seasons, we're going to need more support, or we're going to need some professional support, or at times when appropriate, we might need some medical support.
Yeah.
But we all need support. We were designed to live in community. We were designed to be dependent on the Lord and to live and grieve and celebrate within community. And I think a lot of times people will avoid reaching out for help because we don't want to feel like a burden. Like, oh, they're so busy, I don't want to bother them. Or, they're not feeling this loss to the degree I'm feeling the loss. I don't want to make them sad. I don't want to bother them with my problems. Or sometimes we believe looking to ask for prayer or ask for counseling or seek a support group can categorize us as weak, of I should be able to figure this out on my own, or I'm crazy if I need to go to a counselor. Personally, I would say 90% of my clients are in very healthy seasons, and they're saying, hey, I want to stay healthy for the long haul. I want to be proactive about my mental health, just the same way I'm proactive about my physical health, my relational health, my spiritual health. And so reaching out for help doesn't mean you're weak or something is wrong with you. Reaching out for help means you are human. Yeah. And there are people who have dedicated their lives to various skill sets of what does it look like for where you're at in your grief journey and what would serve you best. And there's no shame in asking. But I do think we as people, we as a church can do a better job about being more open, that it doesn't mean we are weak or in sin or faithless when we are struggling or when we're questioning God or when we are in pain. It means we need support.
Yeah, and that's good. And that's something you speak to in your book too, as well, right? Like just the questioning God when you're in that frustrating, I guess, season. You want to talk a little bit more on that? Because I feel like when you go through hard things, which is what obviously this episode is, whatever kind of grief or pain it looks like, it's very easy to be mad at God, to question, and it's okay to feel those things because this is part of healing. However, it's also a space that can get really sticky for some if they lean into that for too long, that they don't come back to him.
Mm.
So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is actually part of why I wrote my book, because being a lifelong church kid, I saw so many people, whether they would pray prayers of healing or trust God with a certain situation, and then the person passes away or the outcome isn't what they prayed for. And that wrestle with faith or that disillusionment, I saw many people walk away from faith completely as a result of that. I also saw people lean into faith more than ever as a result of that. So there's many different paths we could take. And my heart in writing the book was helping people wrestle with that theological foundation of, yes, storms of life are going to come. It rains on the just and the unjust. But for myself, I believe I have to have a personal foundation of who God says he is, as the Bible says he is, not what I want him to be, what I think he should be, what society says he is, so that I have something sturdy to stand on amidst the storm or as I'm processing a past storm of life. And questioning God's goodness, questioning his character, questioning his presence. As a believer, I think that is absolutely an honest part of processing loss. Because if we go with the platitude of God is good all the time and all the time God is good, and we're just like white knuckling through difficulty, there's something in our spirit that's dissonant. That doesn't seem like I can believe with my head that God is good, but I don't always feel with my heart that he is, especially when I prayed a prayer full of faith and I don't see it answered as I pictured it being answered or in the way or the timeline that I wanted. And so I think that's an honest part as believers that we have to wrestle with in grief, but there is a way to engage that honestly without our heart going cold or cynical. And I do believe community is a huge part of that.
Tracy has, what's the word? Threatened me. No, I'm kidding. No, Tracy convinced me is not the right word. Inspired me. That makes it sound like a lot nicer.
That just makes me sound better than I threatened you.
Yeah.
So wherever we're headed, let's go.
Well, nobody knows about anyways, the Bible recap, doing the Bible in a year. Mm-hmm. And something that I have loved, I've never truly understood, like I can read the Psalms, but having Tara Lee Cobble explain, like, this is like, he's questioning God's goodness. And you wonder, like, why is this in the Bible? Like, how? But to know that that's what some of the authors did, they questioned God's goodness. And like, I am continuing to see the wicked succeed over and over and over again. Where are you? What are you like? And those are not the ones that are on pretty plaques, right, at the store. Those are not the ones you see posted up in people's houses or, the pretty Bible verse on the journal. Like, why is that with the wicked continuing to be so, but that is one of my things that I have tried it more so in my adulthood is the like, God can handle my anger, but more importantly, God can handle my questions. He can handle my doubt. Like he can handle it all. Like go for it. Like what do I think that it's going to scare him off? I mean, I know that I've given my heart to Christ. So yeah. So why not ask him? Be like, why did this happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? Like he will answer that. And like you said, lots of things in teaching our kids, especially that, I do love the platitude that like God is good and all the time that God, I always mess it up. So will you say it
all the time
and all the time God is good. Okay.
Let's thank him for our food. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like you said, if you don't know the character of God, you don't know that to be true. And so it's knowing, like, I know that's true and I can say it to myself and it reassures myself. But for somebody that doesn't know all the characteristics of God and that he is just and why he did what he did, of setting his son on the cross, like that means nothing, nothing to them.
Well, I agree. That's why we have to wrestle and engage our faith. I would guess, Tori, that you have that conviction because you've engaged the questions and you've allowed the Lord to meet you in your questions. When we distance ourselves from him, that's a lack of intimacy. So of course we aren't going to let him speak for himself or hear how he wants to walk alongside us in our questions and in our pain. But when we allow that, that's where we receive revelation or healing or breakthrough, and we can stand on that conviction and we're stronger in future life storms.
Yeah.
Okay, I would love for you to just give us a quick 30-second, snapshot of your book to give us, our listeners, an idea of the resources that they can go grab themselves from Amazon or wherever, if they're walking through any of this. And then we'll let Tori finish with her last question.
Yeah, I can't do 30 seconds, impossible, but I'll do my best.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Overcoming the Overcast is truly a love letter to anyone who has experienced loss, particularly Christians, because I'm very open about faith. And I blend the Bible and neuroscience and counseling together to be a compassionate guide and resource for people. It's not how to, it's not my story, although I weave pieces of my story and various losses that I've walked through in the book, but it's wrestling with why we have a hard time processing loss. And I'll define grief as processing loss of any kind, not just bereavement, processing the loss of a close, meaningful loved one in our life. So this book is for processing loss of all kinds. And there's one section that really more applies to bereavement because I talk about grief in our brain, how neuroscience is teaching us about why it's so hard for us to process. I talk about grief and heaven and what we do have to anticipate and wrestling with what those scriptures look like. And then I talk about the other side of grief, which is something that not many grief resources do, about how we can start to walk in that renewed hope again and what it looks like to process grief and walk in continued layers of healing.
I love it. And just to remind our listeners, I mean, obviously when we talk about grief, we immediately think of bereavement, loss of a loved one. Yeah. But like you mentioned earlier, it can be, and this is Tracy and I's story, moving across the country, the loss of the life that you thought you had, a sudden, a job change. It can be a divorce. It can be something that completely unexpected or like a loss, for a time I grieved what I thought my career was going to look like. Mm-hmm. Like I had this idea of what it was going to look like. Instead, I got married at 21 and had 2 wonderful children after that. And, but it's just, we can grieve lots of things. Yeah. So I just want to tell that to all of our listeners. Okay. So now my last question is, I want to know if I have scarred my children royally because I have told them at my funeral, I would like them to make it a party and play highly inappropriate songs like, Staying Alive and all the most awkward songs that you're like, that's not really. There was a reel that I saw that had a lot of the songs. I actually have funeral playlists in my notes section. Tracy, I have a funeral playlist in my notes section.
I will find that when I need it.
As an avoider, I want people to, I don't want them to be sad. I know where I'm going. I, have oddly, weirdly, the way God has created me, I have thought about death as something that, and oddly enough, I have not experienced it. Like a close personal death in the family. But it is something that it is always in the back of my mind. Mm. But again, just knowing girls, I want you to again, I know where I'm going, you know where I'm going, and not we can't process it. It's a gray area. But can we, like, if for us that, like, is that just traumatizing for those that want to grieve? But for the feelers like Tracy, is she just going to be so incredibly unhappy that I'm having inappropriate songs played at my funeral? Like that.
Can we go back to the beginning of this episode when Amanda clearly said that she likes to control things? Does that have any correlation with what she's trying to do for her own funeral?
Yeah. I mean, no, there is a very strict, my will is going to have like, you're not allowed to do these things. So just want all of y'all to know that my estate plan is set. Sorry.
It's a beautiful gift to alleviate decision-making from your family.
Hey,
I'll frame it that way.
Thank you.
Whether they obey your instructions or not, it's not like you can enforce it at that point. But yeah, I think scarring our kids, there are regular ways. I'm like, as a pastor, as a counselor, what am I doing to mess up my child this week? We're all figuring it out.
Yep.
But I will say there is nothing wrong with desiring it to be a celebration of your life and the gift of who you were and how you impacted people, for sure. I mean, I've attended funerals where people were instructed, don't wear black, wear fun colors, or wear Hawaiian shirts, or, things of that nature. Even my own father's funeral, I wore white very purposefully because I was like, I do know where he is and I am in mourning, but I have that hope of reunion again one day. And also, just because you want to cling to the good and celebrate what is good, which is reality, in the immediate wake of loss, the reality is pain and processing emotions as well. And all of our kids and all of our loved ones are going to have to navigate that in different ways. And it's okay that we don't process the same as each other.
That's fair.
Yes.
When I die, Tracy, I'd like you to take my cell phone and I want you to text message everyone that's there and say, thank you so much for coming from my phone. Yeah. I think that would be lovely too.
She would.
Yeah. So just everybody gets a text message from me at the end. I appreciate it.
Could you what would be better? Is just pre-record it, would you? Just pre-record a voice
message and that you can send it. Yeah. Yep. We'll save it to your phone. It's good. Yeah.
All right. Before we do end, I mean, yes, we want to end on light because that's how she does. However, I do want to end with thank you because this is difficult to talk about, which is why we brought you here. And, our entire summer series is leaning into these conversations of people feeling alone and not knowing where to go, what resources to have. And sometimes, we only know what we know based on our experience of how we were raised or what's been presented to us. So you writing the book and you just being out here on podcasts and sharing your story of what you've gone through and encouraging others to just seek help, especially just in general mental health wellness. And just that, it's okay to go and process and talk about things and work through things. And so thank you for giving us that gift to share with our listeners. And do you have anything else you want to add? How people can find you, website or socials?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for having me. It's truly an honor to share. And I'll just echo, this is part of my redemption story and part of the ashes of my life being redeemed for beauty. So thank you for the privilege to share. I'm online, amandacmcneil.com. That's also my Instagram handle and YouTube. And if someone's looking for grief counseling, grief coaching, that can be found at mcneilcoaching.com. My husband and I founded that a couple of years ago, and we both work together in this field, merging faith and mental health, because we're grateful to have had a mentor to show us that they aren't in conflict, that science confirms what the Bible has taught us long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're honored to be able to share and walk alongside people in that way.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And again, ditto what Tracy said. With that, until next time, housewives. Bye.
Whether we made you laugh or cry today, we pray you feel appreciated, bolder and braver than yesterday, stronger and more faithful for tomorrow, and living in who you were made to be today.
Join our online community on Facebook, link in the show notes, and be sure to review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy listening. Until next time, housewives, we give you permission to walk confidently, free, and to be intentional in your slippers or stilettos.